안녕하십니까. 유엔 미래 포럼 박영숙 한국 대표입니다. 오늘은 호세 코르데이로 박사님을 모시겠습니다. MIT의 공학도이셨고 지금 현재 싱귤레리티 대학교 교수이면서 유엔 미래 포럼의 베네수엘라 대표이십니다. 큰 박수로 우리 호세 코르데이로 박사님을 모시겠습니다.
안녕하세요. So it's a pleasure to be back in Korea, a country that I have visited since the Olympic Games in 1988. So I have seen an incredible transformation in Korea in the last 30 years. And I want to talk about the future. And one of the most incredible things we are going to see in the next 2 to 3 decades, which is what I call the death of death. We are going to see the scientific control of the aging process. And therefore, we will kill death. I am originally from Venezuela in South America, but I don't believe in countries. I don't believe in nations. And I am working in the USA, in Europe, also in South America, and I come to Asia a lot. Actually, I lived 3 years in Tokyo, in Japan. I was working at the Institute of Developing Economies in Tokyo. When I was in Japan, among many things, I learned how to write my name in kanji and katakana, in Chinese, and also in Hangul. I like Eastern philosophy, and the Chinese, they have a very famous phrase that it is better to light up the world. Instead of blaming darkness, we should light up the world. And you can see, this is a very famous picture of NASA, of the world at night. And it's really beautiful. My university in California, Singularity University, is based at the NASA Research Center. And they developed this picture, but there is a very important area, which is Korea, because there are 2 Koreas. There is the Korea of the future, South Korea, and there is the Korea of the past. And this has happened in only 6 decades. 2 years ago, I went to North Korea. For the first time, I visited North Korea, which is truly a very poor country, a totalitarian communist regime. And you can see this is true. There is no light in North Korea. Actually, there is no internet. While South Korea has one of the best internets in the planet, in North Korea, there is no internet. There can be no unification of civilization if there is no unification of Korea. And I have been saying for over 10 years that in about 2020, just to give a number, Korea should be peacefully reunified. So I hope that we will destroy peacefully the DMZ, the demilitarized zone. And this is me looking at the DMZ from the North Korean side. Again, there can be no unification of civilization if there is no unification of Korea. I have been many times in South Korea, and I have published a couple of books with other authors. One is about the future in 2020, transhuman and the economy of the future, and another one is a collection of essays of different futurists about what is going to happen in the next 2 to 3 decades. And now, hopefully, with Park Yeon-suk, we plan to write a book about immortality and about the death of death in the next 2 to 3 decades. I have also written a lot of articles that have appeared in the Korean press, for example, in the last few years about the future of humanity and the future of Korea, always talking about the importance of the reunification of the 2 Koreas. In the Millennium Project, that you have already listened about from my colleague Jerome Glenn, or here in Korea with Park Yeon-suk, we have a network of nodes around the planet. Basically, all the major nations of the planet are contributing with their visions about the future of humanity. And every year we publish a book, about the state of the future, and it is called The State of the Future. This is the latest edition, 2015-2016, about the 15 global challenges and how humanity can transcend, how humanity can improve, how humanity can be unified, thinking about the long-term future. I have also coordinated a regional study about Latin America, because I am Latin American originally. With my colleagues all the way from Mexico down to Argentina and Chile, we wrote a book about scenarios about the future of Latin America in the year 2030. And we counted with the participation of 4 presidents of the region, the presidents of Mexico, Brazil, Chile, and the Dominican Republic. I had the pleasure to present this book and these ideas in many places, like the World Economic Forum, that you might know about, is the important gathering in Davos, Switzerland, about the future of the world. And also with important personalities like the Nobel laureate in literature, Mario Vargas Llosa, originally from Peru, but living mostly in Spain. And also with the candidate of the Republican Party of the USA, Donald Trump. I was on a CNN program talking about the future of Latin America. The idea of the technological singularity was popularized by my boss and friend, Ray Kurzweil, who is also from my alma mater, MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And he wrote in 2005 the best-selling book in technology called The Singularity is Near. And he talks in this book how technology is advancing and artificial intelligence is developing. And if this trend continues, between 2029 and 2045, we are going to have artificial intelligence reaching the level of human intelligence. Even Bill Gates from Microsoft recommends this book as the best book about the future. However, it is not true. The best book about the future is The State of the Future by the Millennium Project. But Bill Gates hasn't read the book yet. Okay, many people don't know yet what is the technological singularity. So I want to scare you a little bit so that you do not sleep tonight. The technological singularity is the end of the human age. I repeat, it is the end of everything we know as human today. Once we have an artificial intelligence which is equal to human intelligence, that will be the last invention that humans will make. Unless we merge with this technology, which I think is what is going to happen, we are going to increase our intelligence merging with the artificial intelligence. And that actually will be the end of the human age. But it will also be the beginning of the post-human age, of humans who have been enhanced, humans who have been improved, humans who are more intelligent, more capable. The idea of the technological singularity is that computers become more and more powerful and cheaper. You can look at that trend, normally known today as Moore's Law, that every 2 years computers double their power and the price is reduced. Every 2 years. And if this continues, and we believe it will continue, between 2029 and 2045, we will have computers that have more transistors than your brains have neurons. More transistors in a computer than neurons in our brain. Even magazines like Time have covered this issue, that by 2045, we will hit this technological singularity with artificial intelligence reaching first and then surpassing human intelligence. And look at the subtitle of the magazine, 2045, the year man becomes immortal. But it is not just for men, also women will become immortal. Let me show this to you so that you see what has happened in the last 30 years. When I began studying computer science, this is how we did programming and how we stored memories. This is basically 10 times 100. So this is 1K of memory, 1K. But these mechanical memories also, you could not change because once you made holes on these mechanical memories, they could not change. And then the first electromagnetic memories were invented. And let me show you one of these, which was 8 inches big, But this had the advantage that you could change, you could erase, you could change. So 1K mechanical or 1K electromagnetic. This eventually won because you could erase and change. And then we moved into other types of memories. You might remember this. This was 512K, and then this 1.4 mega. And here I have a pen drive of 128 gigabytes. So this has happened in 30 years. We went from 1K to 128 gigabytes. So now I ask you, what do you think is going to happen in the next 30 years? Well, in 30 years, we are going to have devices smaller than these that have more transistors than you have neurons in your brain. This is happening with all technologies, not just only with computers. Let me also show you with biotechnology. And for that, I want to show to you my human genome. I sequenced my human genome in 2009, and I will show you the partial sequence of my genome. There are companies like 23andMe that sequence the genome, and then with little devices like this is called a gene chip, a chip for the genes. And this will let you know which diseases you are going to have. What is the probability that you will have cancer, that you will have Alzheimer's, that you will have Parkinson's? All of this is written in your genes. And with little devices like this, you will know what you will die of in the future. But the idea is that once you know what you will die of genetically, you will prevent it. The medicine of the future will no longer be curative. The medicine of the future will be preventive. And the medicine will not be general. The medicine will be personalized according to your own genes. So we are going to move from a bad medicine to a good medicine in the future. And we will cure and we will prevent all diseases in 20 to 30 years. Once you sequence your genome, you will also know where you come from. And this is my paternal line in the last few centuries. And you will be able to correlate your ancestors. In my case, if you look at the bottom right, you will see that on my father's side, I descend from Genghis Khan. And now I will show you my mother's line, my maternal line. You can see my ancestors on my mother's side and famous people related to my mother, Maria Antoinette. So I come from a very aristocratic family between Genghis Khan and Marie Antoinette. All of you will know these once you sequence your genome. Actually, you will be able to reconstruct your genealogical tree and for the first time check scientifically if your father is really your father. But more interesting than looking into the past is looking into the future. And we will design our children in the future. Actually, all of you are part of the last human generation that has not been designed. All of you are here by mistake. Let me show you how we will make our children in the future. This is an experiment I did with one of my students, sharing genes. We shared genes. Obviously, this is a theoretical experiment to see the probability of different characteristics and then choose the ones you want. We will design our children in the future. And if you do not design your children, they will sue you because maybe you gave them a characteristics or a disease that they didn't want because you did not design them properly. You might think that this is expensive. And yes, this was incredibly expensive when it began. The Human Genome Project began in 1990, and it finished in 2003. And it cost over $1 billion just to the US government after 13 years of work. $1 billion, 13 years. Today, in 2016, however, you can sequence your full genome for about $900 today. So it went down from $1 billion to $900. And we expect that by 2025, it will cost only $10. This is incredibly exponential. It's exponential in cost from $1 billion to $10 and in time from 13 years to 1 minute in the future. There are 4 technologies that are converging in the next 20 years and that will change humanity and they will also change humans. We are going to be changed by nanotechnology, infotechnology, bio, and cogno. These 4 technologies are converging in this technological singularity in the next 20 years, plus or minus 10 years. The 2 technologies on top, nanotechnology studies atoms and biotechnology studies cells, are the hardware of life, the hardware of life. And the 2 technologies on the bottom, info studies bits and cogno studies neurons, the brain, are the software of life. So we are going to study the hardware and the software of life in this technological singularity in the next 20 years. I will show you now how in the next 20 years we are going to get to the complexity of the human hardware and to the complexity of the human software, and then improve on it, augment our hardware and our software. We are actually walking data, walking information. Even our human genome is just data. What is the complexity of the human hardware? The human hardware is represented in the human genome. And scientists have been working with different types of living organisms and understanding the complexity and improving on that complexity. 15 years ago, one scientist created an artificial virus. 5 years ago, another scientist, who is a professor also at Singularity University, he created an artificial bacteria. In the next 10 to 20 years, we will reach the complexity of the human genome, which is 3 gigabytes of data. The human genome has about 25,000 genes, which are expressed in about 3 gigabytes of data. If you remember biology, there are 4 letters in biology: A, T, C, and G. The biological code depends on 4 base pairs of nucleotides. And we will reach that level of complexity in the next 10, 20, at the latest 30 years, 3 gigabytes of data. So that you get an idea of the complexity of the human hardware, which is 3 gigabytes, I will compare it to this pen drive that is 128 gigabytes. So how many humans can I fit here? How much is 128 gigabytes divided by 3 gigabytes per person? This is 42.6. You can fit here the genome of 42 humans and a little cat. However, not only the hardware is important, but the software. And the software of a human resides in the brain, which is the most complex structure in the known universe. We do not know anything in the universe yet more complex than the human brain. Maybe tomorrow a Martian comes down to Earth, and then he or she has a more complex brain. But until that time, there is nothing in the universe more complex than the human brain. So it is really the ultimate frontier, understanding the brain. Ray Kurzweil, the founder of Singularity University, he published his last book, How to Create a Mind, that I helped to translate, and I wrote the introduction in Spanish, which is my mother tongue. In this book, Ray Kurzweil, he talks about how in the next 20 years, we will be able to create artificial intelligence comparable first, and then superior to human intelligence. So how complex is the human brain? One brain has 10 to the 11 neurons. That is 100 billion neurons. Each neuron has about 1,000 connections called synapses. This makes 10 to the 14 synapses. And the synapses compute. The brain has 6 frequencies, 6 major types of speeds, velocities. They are called the alpha waves, beta waves, gamma waves, mu waves, etc., which are actually very slow. The brain is a very slow processing machine. The brain normally computes at 10 hertz, at most 100 hertz. A very, very fast brain, like my brain, is 1,000 hertz. Okay, so brains are very slow. Any electronic device today, any device, a mobile phone, a computer, anything that has electronics computes in gigahertz. So electronics is over 1 million times faster than human brains. So the total processing capability of the human brain is 10 to the 17 operations per second. And that is if we do not speak about the mind, the spirit, and the soul. And I love to talk about the mind, the spirit, and the soul, but only after 3 glasses of red wine. Technologies are changing exponentially. Things are becoming faster, smaller, cheaper, and better. However, we think linearly. That is why we do not understand the nature of exponential technologies, because we grew up and our brains evolved in a linear world, even though things are changing exponentially today. 10 years ago, I visited Sir Arthur C. Clarke, who is very famous in science fiction because he wrote Space Odyssey 2001 and many other books that later became movies about technology, science fiction, space. And he is very famous for the 3 laws of the future. First law of the future, when a famous scientist says that something is possible, he is probably right. But when he says it is impossible, he is probably wrong. Second law of the future, the only way of discovering the limits of the possible is to venture past those limits into the impossible. And third law of the future, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So I will be talking about the future, about things that might seem to be magic today, but that they will be reality soon. Some technologies of the past, like computers, only began like 30 years ago. Mobile phones, about 20 years ago. Companies like Google were very small 10 years ago. So imagine what is going to happen in the next 10, 20, 30 years ago. In the future, we are going to see magic. I repeat, magic. One of those things is going to be the control of aging. We are going to be able to have immortal cells in 2 to 3 decades. Actually, at Singularity University, we say that aging is a disease, but it is a curable disease, and we expect to cure aging in 2 to 3 decades. Actually, one of our professors created the Methuselah Foundation. I don't know if you know who is Methuselah, but he is one person, one biblical figure that lived 1,000 years in the past. So they created this Methuselah Foundation to create immortal mice, a little mouse that can become immortal. They are doing experiments for longevity and rejuvenation of mice. It is very important to do experiments with mice because they are 90% equal to humans. We are very similar to a mouse, 90% equal. But the advantage of doing experiments with mice is that they only live 2 years. So you can actually do many experiments with mice. If you do those experiments with humans, we die in the process. This was started 10 years ago, and look at the incredible results since that time. Today we have mice that live about 3 times their normal lifespan. So this is the equivalent of having humans of 300 years. We have little mosquitoes that live 4 times their normal life expectancy before the treatments. And we have worms that live 6 times longer than before. Actually, we know today even more. We know that we have cells in our bodies that are basically immortal, cells that do not age, the best ones and the worst ones. The best cells are the germinal cells, which are important for reproduction. Germinal cells are the ones that make the sperm in men and eggs in women. And they do not age. They do not age. Germinal cells do not age. And also cancer cells. Cancer is the most fantastic disease because cancer discovered how not to age. And that is the problem about cancer, because cancer doesn't age. It keeps on growing and reproducing, grows and reproduces, and eats the rest of the body. Cancer discovered how not to age. That is the proof that it is possible to control aging, because cancer already did it. This was discovered in 1951 when a patient called Henrietta Lacks died of a cancer. The scientists extracted the tumor, and they discovered that the tumor did not die. The tumor kept on growing and reproducing as long as it had food, okay? These are the most famous cells in biology today, and they are called HeLa cells. in memory of Henrietta Lacks. Actually, in Korea, there are many centers that have HeLa cells, which is the first immortal line of cells that we know of. But since that time, in 1951, scientists have understood that cancer actually discovered how not to age. That is why, to me, that is the most fantastic disease. Actually, many companies are beginning to understand that immortality will be possible very soon, including Google. Google, 3 years ago, created a new company called Calico, California Life Company. I have 2 students of mine working there, Calico, California Life Company. And as you can see, it appeared in Time magazine. And the objective of Calico is to cure death. We believe we will solve the problem of death in 2 to 3 decades. And for that, Google already invested over $1.5 billion. And they will be investing more money because today we know it is possible because cancer has done it. Cancer has discovered how not to age. Actually, many people are beginning to realize that this will be possible very soon. And that includes many people in Silicon Valley, in California. So also in Newsweek, they interviewed many of the big billionaires in California who are beginning to invest on how to cure aging. And that is why we are getting closer and closer to solve the problem of death. It is just a technical problem. Actually, also 3 years ago, a Nobel Prize for Immortality was created. It is called the Palo Alto Longevity Prize. And this was started by a medical doctor who understands that we will be able to cure aging very soon. And because he's a billionaire, he is beginning to create this prize and give $1 million to the medical doctors like himself who advanced the fastest to cure aging. Actually, I have done several programs on TV for History Channel, Discovery Channel, and CNN in Spanish, talking about the recent advancements in longevity and how we should be able to cure aging in the future. Also, well, the idea is not to die. If you survive the next 30 years, you will probably be able to live indefinitely. But if you die before that time, then we have Plan B. Plan B is cryopreservation. Some of my students at Singularity University began what is called the Organ Preservation Alliance, which is freezing all types of body organs in order to be reused and to reanimate people in the future. Actually, some of my students appeared on The Economist in February of this year about organ preservation and how they are using cryonics to preserve all body organs, including the heart and any other body parts, and soon the brain. Also, 2 months ago, the Brain Preservation Foundation gave an award to a group of scientists that were able to preserve in a perfect condition the brain of a rabbit. They vitrified the brain of a rabbit, and they could compare when the rabbit was alive and when the rabbit was dead, that all the synapses in the brain were preserved. Actually, organ preservation and cryonics is well known, like with human embryos. A group of friends of mine in Spain have a foundation called Vida Plus, which is about embryonic stem cells, umbilical cords, sperm, and eggs. As you probably know, it is not just possible, it is very common today to preserve human embryos, sperm and eggs. Now, the idea is to take this into bigger organs and eventually into human bodies completely, including the brain. Also, in the world, there are 3 centers of human cryopreservation. 2 are in the USA, and 1 is in Russia, outside of Moscow. This is me with my Russian colleague who has started this cryonics facility outside Moscow. I am saying this because I am creating the 4th Human Cryonics Foundation in the world in Spain. Because there is nothing in Western Europe, we think Spain is the best place to have a cryonics foundation. But also, you don't need to preserve the whole body. What you really need is to preserve the human brain, because the brain is all your memories, your experiences, and the body you can clone later. You can create a new body, but what you need to preserve is your brain. Again, I'm explaining this, and I'm working on these issues, but this is only plan B. Plan A is not to die. But if you die, we will cryonically suspend you in Spain. Actually, we founded this institution called cryonica.org, where we are putting information about cryonics in Spanish. We have had a lot of coverage, not just in Spain, but all over Latin America, from Mexico, Argentina, Brazil, Colombia. Also, we think Spain is very well located for cryonics. You don't have to go to Russia or to the USA, but for Western Europe, it's a fantastic location. You can see the group of founders of this institution. Unfortunately, one of our members died in February, and he has been the first Spanish person who has been cryonically suspended. So this was an emergency operation even for us. We were not ready for him dying, but we immediately froze him, and we expect to reanimate him in the next 30 years. We are working with scientists all over the world so that people begin to understand that cryonics is also possible. Just like immortality will be possible in the next 30 years, we also believe that in 30 to 40 years, we should be able to reanimate frozen patients or frozen brains. And we have an alliance of scientists around the planet explaining how this will be possible in the next 30 years. I want to invite you to a big event we are organizing in San Diego, California, which is called RAD. RAD is the first event about immortality, open event with scientists and artists about immortality. RAD means Revolution Against Aging and Death. This will happen in San Diego, California, in August, between the 4th and 7th of August, the first scientifically based event about immortality. So you are very welcome to come to California to begin to learn about how we are going to conquer aging and death. I am one of the organizers of this event. We have top scientists and artists talking about immortality and how it will be possible. But you can just Google it, RAD, Revolution Against Aging and Death. You are very welcome to come to California to learn how it will be possible to have Plan A in 20 to 30 years. But again, remember, if something happens to you, you have Plan B, which is cryonics. We have incredible speakers, including the first human person that began experimenting on herself to become younger scientifically. And she has been able to modify her telomeres. The telomeres are the end part of the chromosomes that normally get reduced when you age. However, she has been able to increase her telomeres, and she actually has become younger in 1 year. So this is patient zero, the first person in human history who says that scientifically is becoming younger. You will be able to meet her, and she's starting a clinic in Fiji, in the Pacific, because in some countries there is so much regulation, like in the USA, that you cannot do these experiments in the USA. But in Fiji, they are open to anything, and it is a fantastic place. It is like a paradise to become immortal. Well, with this, I want to invite you all to help me and my friends to bring closer this incredible human achievement, the death of death. And the sooner, the better. So, 감사합니다.
사람이 죽지를 않고 계속 이제 인구가 누적이 된다면 이 지구가 어떻게 될 것인지 좀 두려움이 없지 않을 것 같습니다. 그에 대한 어떤 생각을 해보신 적이 있으신지 궁금합니다.
Well, first, this is not mandatory. If you want to die, you can die. If you think there are too many people, you can die. Unfortunately, the problem of the planet is that the population is stabilizing, and soon it will decline. As I mentioned, I lived 3 years in Tokyo. During the time I was in Japan, the population of Japan went down 500,000 people. Japan will not exist in 100 years because the population is declining very fast. China will have the largest human tragedy ever recorded. Between the year 2030 and the year 2050, China will lose 200 million people. It will lose 200 million people. This is the population of Korea many times. The same is happening in Russia. The population of Russia has been going down for 10 years. The population of Germany for about 5 years. The population of Italy, of Spain is going down very fast. Actually, the population of the world is stabilizing and going down. So we need to have these technologies for the survival of humanity. Number two. Another reason, if you do think there are too many people and you don't want to commit suicide, you can go to Mars. We are going to begin colonizing Mars in the next 2 decades. My university is located at NASA in California, and the idea is to begin human colonization of Mars in the next 15 to 20 years. So we actually needed more people to go to Mars. But also, it is a fallacy. It is not true that there is overpopulation. It depends how people use resources. For example, as I said again, I lived 3 years in Tokyo. Tokyo is the largest city in the world. Tokyo has 37 million people. Greater Tokyo, the metropolitan area of Tokyo, 37 million people. And everything works. Everything is on time. Everything is clean. If the whole planet had the density, population density of Tokyo, the whole humanity would fit into Japan's, and the rest of the planet would be empty of humans. So actually, it is how we humans use space and use resources. But planet Earth is full of resources. And besides planet Earth, there is the whole universe, which has even more resources. Our planet is a very small planet in an almost infinite universe. And just one more point. The same will happen in Korea. Korea is going to reach peak population maybe in 10 years, 15 years, and then the population will begin declining. But some final comment. I mentioned that the most complex structure in the universe is the human brain. Therefore, is it good to have more human brains or not? And if this is the best structure in the universe, we should have more, not less brains. This brain allows us to imagine, to create, to think about the future. Therefore, we need more people. And that is why humanity has increased so much in the last 100 years, because we have more people, more brains.
박사님 강의 잘 들었습니다. 인간이 장수하고자 하는 것은 기본적인 욕망인데 신체적인 어떤 개조를 위해서 장수한다면은 아마 오래 사는 것은 누구나 다 원하는 것도 있겠지만 신체적인 장수와 더불어서 사람들이 고통받을 수도 있지 않을까. 왜냐하면은 그 신체적으로 오래 살게 되면은 우리가 이제 나쁜 기억들을 가지고 있다면은 빨리 신체를 포기하고 싶은 사람들도 있지 않을까 하는 생각이 듭니다. 그렇다면은 그 사람에게서는 굉장한 불행이죠. 자동적으로 늙어서 짧은 시간 내에 이제 죽으면 괜찮은데 그렇다면은 우리가 이거 어떤 정신적인 신체적인 장수와 더불어서 정신적으로도 어떤 거기에 대응하는 이런 계획은 갖고 있는지 정신적으로 거기에 매칭시켜서 따라갈 수 있는 어떤 이런 발전적인 가능성은 있는지 그런 것을 연구하는지 궁금합니다.
What we are going to do with the diseases and the problems of the brain? And the answer is we will make our brain better, healthier, even with more memory, or sometimes you might want to lose those bad memories. That will be possible too. So the idea is to have a healthier, longer life. We don't want to live 1,000 years like a 100-year-old person today. We want to live in youth, in good condition, with good brains. Actually, we will have even better brains because we will augment our intelligence. We will increase our memory with artificial intelligence. Actually, Google says that Google wants to be the third half of your brain. The third half of your brain. They want to increase your brain capabilities. They want to increase your memories. So we will be living younger, longer, and better.
예, 박사님 그 강의를 들으니까 미래가 너무 기대되기도 하고 한편으로는 그러나 또 한편으로는 좀 제가 볼 때는 너무 낙관론적인 입장이다 이렇게 생각이 많이 들었습니다. 좋게 보면 그렇게 강의를 들으면서 돈을 빨리 모아야 어차피 그게 가능한데 그러면 또 사회에 새로운 하이라키가 생길 가능성도 있다 생각됩니다. 제 질문은 만약에 인간이 이렇게 오래 살게 되는 그런 문제를 해결한다고 한다면은 좋은 점도 있지만은 그에 따른 아주 문제점이 많이 생길 것 같은데 그 문제점은 가장 궁극적으로 어떻게 해결할 것인가 하는 문제. 아까 말씀하셨듯이 나쁜 기억을 지운다 이렇게 했는데 그렇다면 인간은 지금 말하는 그런 개념으로서 인간이 아닌 것 같습니다. 그렇죠? 그렇다면은 미래 인간은 사실 인조 인간이 아닌가 하는 그런 생각도 듭니다. 그렇다면은 과연 그때 인간의 생각, 사고 이런 것을 지배하게 되는 현대 사회에서 그런 기능을 하는 종교 같은 것은 어떻게 될까 하는 것이 제 질문입니다.
There are actually many problems in the future. That is why we need more intelligence to be able to solve those problems. One big issue that concerns me, that worries me, is the division of humanity. Because I talked about the end of the human age for most of humanity, but some people will remain in the past. So that worries me. But I think most of humanity will transcend and improve, and we will go into the post-human age of humans which are improved, augmented. And we are continuing to evolve biologically, but now we can do it by design with technology. And I think that most humanity will want to evolve. Just like we live in a much more interesting world than the monkeys, post-humans will live in a much more incredibly positive, fantastic world. And not only on this planet, but beyond planet Earth. As I said, in 2 decades, we are going to begin the colonization of space. And this will be fabulous, incredible. We cannot even dream of the fantastic things we will discover. So I do think that the future is incredible. I want to live in the future. I think we are going to create fantastic things we cannot even conceive today. But I think most of humanity will transcend the human limitations. We will improve. We will become more intelligent. And that is why I say I'm not afraid of artificial intelligence. I am afraid of human stupidity. And human stupidity actually is natural. So I think we should transcend our stupidity and become more intelligent. And artificial intelligence will help us to become more intelligent for all of humanity that wants to improve.
그러면 이것으로서 호세 코르데이로 박사님의 Death of Death, 죽음의 죽음이라는 강연을 마치겠습니다. 큰 박수 부탁드립니다.